Hello! Welcome to another episode of Avenue A, where we talk acting, we talk networking, and we talk the arts industries in general, as a whole. Happy Friday. I am your host, Kelsey Bentz, and for those of you who are tuning in to Avenue A for the first time, welcome. Avenue A is a platform that I created at the beginning-ish of the pandemic, coming out of art school into this terrible time for artists, and I thought I would create a platform in order to stay connected with my fellow colleagues and artists and people who are all trying to stay creative and just make it through this time where theater as we know it and performing as we know it is so different. So I'm excited to have you all here. We have another really exciting guest tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hi, Max. I see a couple other people in the comments. We have Dana. Thanks for tuning in. You guys are the best. So, yeah, without further ado, let's just jump right in. I'm very excited about the guest tonight. So, her name is Linnea Gregg. Now, Linnea graduated from the NYU Tisch School of the Arts in 2015 with a concentration in experimental theater. After college, she began working for the Tennessee Williams Theater Company of New Orleans, playing the lead role of Rosa in The Rose Tattoo and Simonetta in The Milk Train Doesn't Stop Here Anymore. Her additional theater credits include What the Ladies Do, Cassowary and The Stars Look Very Different Today, and Yellow-Eyed Creatures. In 2019, she won Best Actress at the West Coast Horror Film Festival and the Shauna Shea Film Festival for her portrayal of Elysia in Joe Badon's The God Inside My Ear. She's also recently been nominated for Best Supporting Actress at the Film Quest Film Festival for Badon's following project, Sister Tempest. So I'm super excited to have Linnea on the show tonight. Let's welcome her to the stage. Hello.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's so exciting to connect with you because for the viewers who might not know, Linnea and I have met one time in New Orleans like 5 years ago.
Yeah, through
and so
and I guess former guest of the show, Pearson.
Yes, indeed. The very first guest on Avenue A, Pearson Coons. He connected us. So it's a small world in the performing arts.
Is. Yeah.
Which is comforting in a way, I think.
Comforting, also a little terrifying at times, I would say.
Also terrifying, absolutely. Well, let's just jump right in. So, Linnea, can you tell us a little bit about your journey as a performer? I mean, you've lived in several different places. You've been part of a variety of artistic endeavors, from New Orleans to, being a part of horror films to the New York City theater scene. So can you share with us sort of what you've learned about yourself as a performer through all of your experiences?
Yeah, so my journey starts in New York, training there and also working in the downtown theater scene while I was going to school. getting, honing my craft as an actor. I was also stage managing outside of school, so I kind of started to meet people through that. And then I moved down to New Orleans, and I was there for 2 years. And it was there that, I continued to do theater, but that's when I really started doing film. And I did my first short film in 2016 and my first feature film the summer after, and decided that I really, really loved doing film. So I kind of jumped into doing that more seriously. Um, and it's been a fascinating journey in that, a lot of the time people will be like, well, but wait, what do you love about doing horror films? Like, what made you decide to do horror films? And I always say I didn't choose them; they chose me. um,
That's
it's
awesome.
yeah, and I feel like I've started to find a bit of a niche there.
Mm.
I don't want to get pigeonholed into it, but at the same time, I do really enjoy these like kooky characters that I've had the chance to portray.
I love
So.
that you say it's not that I chose it, it chose me. Can you speak a little bit more about what that means for you? Like it sounds like there's more behind that.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that happens in an acting training program is that they train you to be versatile. And I know that some programs do kind of get into the idea of type and like
Yeah.
auditioning for your type and being aware of what your type is. But, in order to really be marketable, they still are like, oh, like you should have a range of things that you can do. So even though maybe you're 19 years old, let's put you in a scene as a 40-year-old woman and
Hmm.
see if you have the depth to bring that to life.
Yeah.
Um, and so you get those skills in school or in a training program or classes or what have you, but then you transition out into the world and you start applying for things and realize very quickly that it's not about like what you can do, it's how other people see you and what they
Right.
think you would be good doing.
Hmm.
And so for me, like I could play bitchy cheerleader type, but people never see me as that kind of thing.
Right.
I get like girl next door a lot of the time.
Hmm.
I like to say that my type is girl next door, but something's wrong with her. Um, and that's because that's the type of thing that I've gotten to do over and over again. And there
Yeah.
are a few roles that have deviated from that. But for the most part, it's been like, oh, she starts out like kind of cute. And then, oh my God, is she possessed by a demon? So that's how it goes.
That's amazing. Girl next door, but there's something wrong with her. Amazing. Now, so you trained at NYU, and I also trained at NYU, but you were in ETW
I
and
started out
years
at
before me.
Playwrights and then went into ETW. So
Oh,
I
you
started
started at
out,
Playwrights.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And what was your motivation to transfer into ETW as opposed to any of the other studios?
So I really followed my heart on that one. For people who might not know, so NYU, the drama department is broken up into 7 different undergraduate studios, and each of them has a different focus. I don't know if we've talked about that on here before, but
Briefly, but this is good info for those who don't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I didn't know when I applied to school. I
I
had
didn't either.
no concept
I
of
didn't
studios.
either.
People were like, "Oh, like what studio do you want to be in?" And I was like, "What's that?" Um, so the Playwrights Horizons Theater School, which was it's like a Hogwarts sorting system. You get
It
sorted
is.
into a studio, and it weirdly works out really well for most people.
Yeah.
So I was in Playwrights, which trains performers, but also directors and writers and designers.
Yeah.
And they kind of focus on the holistic theater experience. The idea is like you could be picked up and put into any production and be told like you're going to work as a crew member, you're going to work on the design team, or you're going to be a performer in it, and you should be able to do pretty much anything. So they think about like versatility in every way with that. And I enjoyed my first 2 years there, but by the end of it, I wanted to really focus more on the performance aspect and also just kind of be in a different environment from the one that I had been in. And ETW, the Experimental Theater Wing, is kind of like a sister studio to Playwrights Horizons in that they both focus on creating work and devising work and being very collaborative. And that was the kind of thing that I wanted to focus on. So that's why I decided to audition and transfer into a different studio.
Awesome. Awesome. So I know that you're also a writer as well as a performer. And was that something, this kind of a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of writing, but I haven't really gone anywhere with it. But yeah, that was that was part of it, you know.
That was
I
part of it. Yeah.
wanted to continue to try to make new work. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
So, a big aspect of this show, Avenue A, is the topic of networking and how that big word networking affects our careers as artists. What does networking mean to you? And
Mm-hmm.
follow up, has your perspective on networking changed over the years, and if so, how?
Uh, I would say that what networking means to me and how it has changed, I'll kind of like bring it all together into one. I used to think of
Sure.
networking as it's who you know. And what I've come to learn is it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And like I've heard that from other people, and I've really come to realize how true that is. Because you can get into an audition room, you can make connections with casting directors, like you can put your face in front of the right people, but unless they remember who you are, it doesn't really go anywhere.
Right.
So it's who knows you, and it's a bit of a demon. It's my least favorite part of this entire business.
Yeah, yeah, me too. It's such a like mountain it seems sometimes to climb as an artist, and that's why I like to bring it up because
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like there's something to be debunked with that topic of
Yeah.
networking, you know?
Yeah. I think the thing that has really grinded my gears over the past few years since graduating and like, you know, trying to be in the business
Yeah.
is the advice that I get from people who have just absolutely no connection to anything, you know, and it's well intentioned, you know, I understand that, but the things are like, oh, you should audition to be on one of those Netflix shows. I would love to. I would really love to. That's not how it works. I can't just email
Thank you
Netflix and be
so
like,
much.
hey, I want an audition slot. That's
Just
not how it
call up
works.
Netflix. You don't have
I'll
their
just
phone
I'll
number?
just call them.
Just
I'll
call
mail
them.
them my resume.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is frustrating at times.
It is. It is. Now I'm wondering, has your perspective on the concept of networking changed at all from, I mean, when you started as a young performer through NYU to now? Has there been any like shifts in how you look at it?
Um, I think as time goes on, I kind of give more into just being myself, being my
Mm.
weird self with people. Um, the I've kind of noticed, you know, I think about Aubrey Plaza a lot of the time.
Hmm.
She is basically just doing different versions of herself over and over again. And you can tell in the characters that she plays and also in the interviews that she does that she is just a huge weirdo.
Yeah.
And that's what captivates people. And that's how, like, I guess she got her rise into fame. And so, you know, I'm not saying be mean to anyone, like, if you're a mean person, but
Right. That's probably not the best
yeah, don't do
thing
that.
to embrace. Yeah.
But like the fake niceties really don't get you very far. If you're
Yeah.
not if you don't have substance to show, there's not much of anywhere to go with anything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm really just like, if I'm feeling kind of like today, then that's the energy that I'm going to bring into the room, and I'm
Right.
just going to go with it.
Now, I feel like, I don't know what your experience was at NYU, but I feel like the programs at NYU tend to really push this idea of networking and its importance, which I
Mm-hmm.
understand and agree with. It is a big part of the industry and a big part of, everyone talks about who you know, right, as an actor. So, of
Mm-hmm.
course, I respect that. But I definitely experienced this concept of um, you should just try and meet as many people as you can, like plant all these seeds, and it doesn't. The thing that was missing for me was the emphasis on the quality of the relationships that you are attempting to build with people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that actually has been a big part of my experience, and what has also like been a bit of a struggle for me is that when I work with someone, oftentimes I will work with them again,
Mm-hmm.
because we will get into a good flow on set or in the rehearsal room and realize like, oh, we enjoy this collaboration. It's
Yeah.
going well. They'll approach me later and be like, hey, I have another project. I want you to audition for it or something like that. And it's really like the quality of the relationship that builds on itself into the next
Right.
thing.
Right.
um, just meeting as many people as you can. If you have the budget for pay to play sessions and the time for it, then you can just do that as much as you want
Right.
to. But that's quantity. That's,
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes in front of a casting director or an agent. They might get a little bit of a sense of who you are, but they're not, spending a 12-hour day with you, um, you know, crying over the fact that you just messed up a shot and you need to figure out how to do it again. So yeah, I think that definitely resonates.
Yeah, and I think it's hard too. I mean, it's easier said than done to focus on the quality rather than the quantity because quantity is part of it too, right?
Mhm.
Like we have
Yeah.
to strike that balance between there's no way to even get into the room to do a 12-hour day or shoot with someone until you book the job. And to book the
Yes.
job,
Yeah.
you have to go through hundreds of auditions maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is that balance of sort of putting yourself out there and kind of having that stamina. But then also, I think it goes back to your point about just being yourself, like putting yourself into the room, but just being like,
Mhm.
if you vibe, you vibe. And if you
Mhm.
don't, I'll go on to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So to transition a little bit, something that I feel like a lot of us have been struggling with during the pandemic specifically is finding or maintaining motivation to continue creating. Um, Specifically, when the mode of creation that a lot of us are used to, for me, it's mostly theater, right? It's just completely shut down for the
Mhm.
most part. Um, so I'm wondering how have you been dealing with this kind of concept?
Um, Yeah, I
Yeah.
am. I'm streaming on TikTok right now, for fun.
Yes.
And it's funny because I was actually, not to sound like a hipster, but I was on TikTok before it blew up in 2020, and everyone was
Oh.
like, "Oh my gosh, I'm on TikTok."
And you're like,
Um,
I've been here.
like I've been here. I basically just transitioned from Tumblr onto TikTok. That's who I am as a
That's
person.
awesome.
Like,
Yeah.
is it? Um, yeah, and so I had already like started building a platform where I was creating just like content, being like, okay, a lot of the roles I play are very like weird and dark, but I kind of also am like a bit of a goofball, so I want to put that out there a bit more. And I'd had it in my brain to like try my hand at stand-up comedy before the pandemic happened, and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden we weren't congregating in places anymore.
Right.
Um, so for me, it really has been just like continuing to post stupid, dumb little videos on this platform mostly to entertain myself, I guess.
Yeah.
But also just to be like, to keep those creative juices flowing, and finding inspiration in the weirdest places.
Mm.
Because, the content, I'm in charge of it. I can make whatever I want. And sometimes I just find a little thing, make a video, and there you go.
And there you go. I
Mm-hmm.
think that what you just said about how you're in charge of the content, that's huge right now, specifically,
Yeah.
because there is so little sort of organized stuff happening. It's very much like everyone for themselves. And there
Yeah.
is quite a lot of beauty in that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like weirdly disconnected and competitive at the same time. Like I know
Yeah.
when I go on TikTok, I'm not super active on TikTok, but I will look through. A lot of performers are turning to TikTok as a mode of creation, which is
Well,
awesome. But there
but
is
TikTok created a musical.
that's
I
right.
don't, yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
it really was beautiful to kind of watch that from like conception to realization.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden there's just this weird like collaboration happening from across the world. People are like, I don't even know where it came from. Someone was like, hey, the Pixar movie Ratatouille, wouldn't that be a great musical? Broadway should do that. And then a bunch of kids were like, you know what, it's a pandemic, Broadway's not doing anything, let's just start, like spitballing ideas here. All of a sudden, like, people are like, this is my submission for this song for this character.
Yeah.
And one person would post that video, someone would respond, be like, I love this song, here's my choreography submission for it. It got to the point where someone who works on Broadway was actually like, oh yeah, you know what, it would be cool to do a fundraiser for Broadway actors with this idea. And all of a sudden, Adam Lambert is singing the lead, and the cast of Six the Musical are wearing like rat ears being backup dancers. Like, what? What happened? It's amazing.
What happened? That is okay. I actually did not know all of that. I
I,
knew that it
I'm
happened.
here
I knew
to
that it was
tell you.
sort of that is I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Hmm.
And that's I think the for lack of a better word, beauty of the moment.
Yeah.
Because as performers, we have no choice but to take things into our own hands. That's something
Right.
that I've really been challenged with personally and had to embrace over the last year
Hmm.
because I was very used to molding myself to fit someone else's vision, right?
Yeah.
Especially in acting school, coming out of that.
Hmm.
As much as the faculty seem to want you to create be your own artist, right?
Hmm.
Become who you are as a person and an artist. There is a certain level of like, okay, I know what this teacher's looking for. I know what they want me to do. I know how they see me.
Yeah.
So I got really good at. I think everyone who goes to acting school kind of figures that out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so I came out of school just having a lot of skill in appreciating and creating other people's visions. But
Right.
when I was left to my own devices and I was like, well, what's my vision? What am I going to do with
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
now?
Hmm.
It was a whole nother ball game.
Hmm.
Was that a challenge for you when the pandemic began, or was that sort of something that you were already kind of doing?
Um, a little bit of both. I've always really
Mm.
appreciated bringing someone else's idea to life.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
me too.
ultimately, I do love that, like the exploration of something that is outside of myself.
Yes.
Um, but at the same time, there's so many scripts that I've read that I've been like, I would never talk this way, but I have to figure out how to talk this way. Not even in like a
Mm-hmm.
Shakespearean or Chekhovian kind of way, just like I'm not sure how I as a person would make this sound natural for me. Um, but yeah, I mean, it comes back to just finding those weird little nooks where you fit in as like your weird self or my weird self, because I'm so strange. But yeah, like the pandemic overall for me has made me question who I am over and over and over again.
Mm.
Um, it's been a lot of back and forth. It's been a lot of up and down.
As a person or as an artist or both?
Yeah, just everything.
Yeah.
Um, there was a moment over the summer where I was booked to work on an indie film, and not at the last minute, but like I guess about a month out from when I was supposed to be heading to like shoot in Ohio, the director was like, hey, like I don't think it's really going to work out based on scheduling. It was the whole thing. Like there's been a long conversation about some stuff. And he was like, so I really want you in the role, but I just don't think it's going to work out. And I just had a full on breakdown. I was like, this is the one thing that I was looking forward to. This is the
Yeah.
one thing that I was holding on to like keep my sense of identity. And I had a full on moment, like crying with my parents, being like, if this isn't what I'm doing, then who am I?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's been really tough.
Yeah. I hear that. I mean, you said that and I was like, yes.
Thank
That heart to heart resonate.
you.
Because the what you said about that was what you were looking forward to, that's what you were holding on to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge right now because we don't have anything really that we're like looking, like there's so many unknowns. And I think, I don't know, as artists we're like programmed to be like, okay, I'm gonna line up all my gigs, like I have 12 months in a year, and like how can I do all these the work, and you
This is
prepare
pilot
to.
season, and then this is like indie film season, and just how
Exactly.
everything lines up. Hmm.
Yeah, and now it's just void. And then so you had something that you were like, okay, that's sort of the light in the tunnel, and
Hmm.
then that light was turned off. So that, I mean, that's super hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you kind of, I mean, not to get necessarily too personal, but I'm curious, how did you go through that? How did you get to the other side of that just feeling of loss?
Um. So this is gonna get so sappy. I kind of inadvertently got stuck in like the first 4 months of the pandemic out in Hawaii, which is where I'm from,
Mm.
um, with my parents. Um, and it was really just like turning to the basics of everything.
Mm.
Um, I think, like, for me, COVID has made me question like what I'm doing as an actor, what I'm doing as a person over and over again. And also taking a hard look at the things and people in my life and what really matters.
Mm.
And it was it was being with my parents, and really sorry having that like just like very close support system
Yeah.
um, that made me able to climb out, I guess, and
Mm.
kind of be okay again.
Yeah.
Um, I think this is a lot of what I've been thinking about. Sorry, I'm going to take a brief tangent. I think a lot of the time in this industry, it's very easy to get caught up in the business and just the business. And that's it. Like, that's your entire life. And having that taken away from me made me realize that it's the connections, it's the people in your life that are the most important thing. And if you can have the business, you can do the business and like, really go for it. But at the end of the day, family and your friends, if you don't have that solid like base in your life, nothing is worth it.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. Ooh, I have chills. I mean, I think that's so spot on. So spot on. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's really meaningful.
It's been heavy, and
Yeah,
you
it
know
has.
mhm,
It has undoubtedly. I think for all of us, but everyone in different ways.
mhm.
Um, yeah. So we've been talking about how we're all living through this moment of kind of both longing for the days past of performing as we knew it, um, but also adapting to the current moment, and realizing different things and finding new perspective. So I'm wondering, what do you see as the future of live performance?
Whew.
I
um
know, big one.
yeah, I'm really excited to see how people start messing with form, um,
Mm,
because I have both, in like my day job, like run readings of projects over Zoom, and I've
okay.
also been in readings over Zoom. And it's been really fascinating to see how people are utilizing the virtual platform. Um, so there's like Zoom, like a bit more highbrow, I guess I would say, readings and stuff.
Yeah,
And then TikTok, a bit more lowbrow, just
sure.
like it's its own form, it's its own like vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the thing, it's hard to kind of describe to people who are outside of New York for the most part, like what the theater experience is like here and what it can be like.
Yeah.
Um, like describing Sleep No More to people. Um,
Yeah.
and then she fell, it's like the concept of theater that most people everywhere have is like you sit and you watch, and that's like how you take it in. It's like a movie, except there are people actually there.
Yeah.
And I think that um, the virtual platform has allowed people to, on a wider scale, start to mess with like the form of the content. Like, is this a play about two people who are on Zoom, or is it like a play about people in like a weird cyberspace? How do we utilize turning cameras off and on? Just
Yeah.
that concept is so similar to me to like immersive theater, like what immersive theater has been doing already in New York for a while. And I think
Yeah.
that with that in mind, we're going to start to see more of that popping up elsewhere,
Mm.
in the country and in the world. So I'm really looking forward to. I really hope there's not a lot of like COVID based musicals or anything like that, because I do not want to see that. Um, but I think it would be really exciting, and I think it's entirely possible that we'll see a lot more of like, it's a theater piece, but it's also a maze, like
Yeah. Yeah.
what does that look like? Fefu and her friends 3.0.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's where I think things are going. I think we're going to start to see just like a lot
Mm.
of like weirder structure starting to happen.
Like a broader embracing of the kind of avant-garde
Yeah,
scene
yeah,
that New York has been embracing for a while.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's gonna get everywhere.
I sure hope so.
I really
I
hope so.
mean, yeah, that's a great perspective. That's different than anyone I've had on the show. So yeah, thanks for sharing. I love to ask that question because I know we're all curious about and making hypotheses about like what's gonna happen in the future. But yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Linnea, our time has come to an end. Thank you so much for being here. For
Thank
for anyone
you.
who's watching, thanks for joining us. If you want to see more of Linnea, follow her, get up in her business. You can follow her Instagram at Linnea Gregg, website www.linneagregg.com, and then of course TikTok. Give her a follow, Linnea Gregg. She's live streaming this whole interview on TikTok, which is a first for Avenue A. So this is very exciting. It's our breach into the TikTok land. So hopefully it's well received. But
let's find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. Yeah, thanks again for joining me. It was a pleasure having you.
It was great to be on. Thank you so much, Kelsey.
Have a great weekend.
You too.
All right, y'all, that concludes another episode of Avenue A. This is our 33rd episode, believe it or not. I was sort of calculating today. That's crazy. Where has time gone? Who knows? Anyway, I hope everyone has a great weekend. Thank you for taking the time to join us on this show. I always feel so warm and filled when I come out of it, so I hope that you all do as well. And we'll see you next week with another awesome guest. Bye.